Climax is this really extraordinary experience where you just roll over this edge and your body opens up in this way, and there's just an overflowing. And when you really pay attention, it's a gate to go from one high energy state into a lower energy state. And this dropping off this cliff and you land in the down, when you really pay attention and you have the space to really feel what's going on there, you'll notice that it is actually pure creative energy that you are falling into. It's this really deep space. All of a sudden, instead of wanting and craving and yearning, there's just this space and this emptiness. And there's this sense of having and this sense of being satiated. It's like a really deep inhale. This video I want to talk about the addiction to climax. We have taken climax as a granted thing. I used to have a climax once a day, or twice a day, or 3 times a day. And every time the body exerts a lot of energy. You probably noticed how when you have a climax as a man, you feel slightly exhausted after, tired. For me, climax is not just the moment of rolling over the edge in a sexual experience, the point of ejaculation. For me, climax is a whole attitude. If a man, or if I used to not get the climax that I wanted, then I would tend to create problems in my relationship. I would fight with people. I would be easily irritated, and it's still this pattern is still playing out in my relationship. I've just recently gone through another cycle of this with my wife and realized how slowly I was demanding sex from her in a subtle way. A lot of men are having the same issue that I have created for myself here. It's an issue that comes because we take climax for granted. It's something that we train ourselves to. We have pornography, we have masturbation, and we use these things in a mindless way. I used to use these things in a mindless way. I had access to it whenever I wanted, And so what happens is I overuse. It creates this demand for climax in my head. I train myself to get it whenever I want to, whenever I feel a little bit discomfort in my life, I can just have a climax. I can just masturbate. I can just watch porn. I really train myself here to have instant gratification immediately at my demand. The outcome of this are two things. I demand the same level of climax, getting what I want in my relationships. I also, from that, create projection that is saying, my wife doesn't want to give me the sex. She doesn't want to have it as much as I do. It is her who is the problem. Isn't that a common one that we men have? My wife doesn't want to have as much sex as I. But another thing that I want to point out here is we don't really appreciate climax anymore. I caught myself all of a sudden watching a porn, masturbating, and then you have a climax, and 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 minutes later, after you clean yourself up, you find yourself at your computer, working, doing something else, and the whole experience of climax has just gone by like it was nothing. That's a strange thing, isn't it? The moment when I realized that there was something not quite right with that was after abstaining for a long time from climax. I went over during a play session, and after that, just out of the habit, I cleaned up and found myself in front of the computer when I realized my whole body was still trembling. And I noticed in that moment how I went into a habit and left my body, which was cracked open in that moment, which was still inside the experience of the climax. I completely checked out. I completely forgot that this moment of climax was still happening. We think climax is this short outburst, but it really isn't. It is just the beginning. The outburst is the beginning of an experience. It is the release of energy, and then your body goes into a whole different state, which is a subtle state. And when you simply let it happen, and you lay and you do not exert any effort afterwards, there's a whole world to be experienced of different sensations and different emotions and feelings. I have had this demand on my partner to have more sex. And really what's happening here isn't so much that she doesn't want it. It has nothing to do really with her. What's really happening here is that I have externalized my sexuality. I've projected the power of my sexuality as a man into a woman. I have externalized my desire, my wanting, and I have given it to her. I have given her my sex in a locket. But the matter of fact is, there simply is a desire in me for the experience and the feeling of my sex. There is a hunger inside me. I used to think that unless a woman gives me the sex, that I don't have sex. And that's the biggest illusion I was under. It made me deeply powerless. It made me deeply dependent on my woman giving it to me. My whole relationship, my whole relating to her, everything I did for her was conditioned by that. I did it not for her, but I did it for myself, as a method to convince her to give me the sex. This creates a whole range of problems in a relationship. And it all starts with the illusion that my sex is in her hands. And the thing I had to realize is that my hunger is my sex. My thirsting for it is already my sex. My cravings are my sex. It all starts from this energy, this sensation and the emotion that I feel inside my body. And my mind starts to point outwards. But the key here is to turn it around and take the attention that I give out towards the object of my desire, and I return this attention inwards and give it to that sensation. When I do that, I start to really connect with my sex. That's when my body starts to open to me. I'm starting to have a conversation with my body, and it is the deepest and most profound conversation that I am having as a man, is the conversation with my own hunger, with my own sex. And leading this conversation, this back and forth, this drawing out what is actually my desire, what are the things that I want, these cravings that I am so eagerly, instantly gratifying through visuals in pornography. When I just hold them, when I sit them, they turn into a landscape of who I am. And having that conversation is what fills me up and what really starts to meet that hunger with nourishment that actually quenches the thirst of urge. The urgefulness starts to go away. The hook where I am attached to getting it right away, and especially not to getting it exactly how I want it, but I am I accept an image, I'm accepting a paper magazine. I am so addicted to getting it gratified quickly that I accept taking a piece of paper or a digital file instead of having the full experience with the real human being. this is actually a real big problem that you have to understand, is you are short ordering yourself. You are not having the sex that you want. You are having a replica of it. You're having a cheap alternative. Instead of a good, nutritious meal, I'm eating potato chips. I'm eating just the menu, the pictures on the menu. But in order to really step into the man that you want to be, the man that you're probably not even aware of that you want to be, because that person is hidden inside your desires. If you want to step into that, then the first thing you have to do is learn how to abstain from the instant gratification of your sexual urges and learn how to sit with them so they can actually tell you how they want you to create your life in a way that is deeply fulfilling to you on a sexual level. And if you are in a relationship, that means that you have to learn how to express your sexual desires as a means of showing who you are and what you want, but without the expectation that your partner is supposed to be the one who gives it to you. Don't get me wrong, they might give it to you. They might have similar desires as you. And if you start to actually own up what you want, then your partner gets to see and understand you. For a long time, my partner didn't even know what I wanted. Only when I started to have a conversation and brought these things out, did she respond with, "Oh wow, I didn't even know that was in there. I had no idea." But there was for some reason an idea in my head that my partner would know how I want to have sex. And because it didn't just appear, because it can't, if no one knows what you want, no one can actually even offer it to you. And what happened for me in that place was that I would get impatient. I would get frustrated because all of those desires that I had, they would slowly boil up to a lot of energy, to a lot of urges, but my mind kept getting disappointed because it wouldn't come. And so what I would do is I would get impatient and demanding. And it is a huge and uncomfortable task for me as a man to start speaking what I want without the demand. Simply from a place of vulnerability and honesty, and from a place of offering and showing who I am. And the result of it surprises me every time, because thankfully I somehow magically manifest people that really approve of it. And sometimes I also have people around me that do not approve of it. And that's a place for me to remember that they are having exactly the same issue with shame around desire themselves. It's not actually about me, that's about them. And it sure isn't my responsibility to fix that or to change their minds. But I can simply not take it on and continue on my journey to be connected to my own sexuality and to my own desires. And when I do that, and the urges and the impatience start to melt away, that's when I'm really starting to receive and really starting to fill up, and I start to feel gratitude and the beauty of it all, because really the waiting is just as beautiful as the climax, and the time with a lover in bed is just as beautiful as the preparing and that moment where you draw out what they want and tell them what you want, and the being in the waiting room together. Because it all of a sudden all becomes this huge intimate medley that just keeps on playing. And that's really when you realize that you have been having your sex all the time. Your sex was all the time there. It just couldn't come out because of all the fears that we have, all the fears that I have, that I will be judged for it, people will think I'm a pervert. All the voices in our heads that say that this is for some reason not important, or one should keep it in their pants. And I just want to remind here that all of these voices are the voices of shame. And all the voices of shame are the voices of desire that has been externalized, that has projected itself out. They should not have it because I don't have it, or I can't have it. And with that, I leave it here, and I hope that this video inspires you to really start listening to the desire, and especially when you want sex to come from the outside, to start looking in the inside. Thank you so much for listening if you have stayed till the end of this video. If you appreciated this video, I would appreciate you leaving a subscribe or a like, or write a little comment underneath if you want to say something or you have a question. Also, if you want to talk about any of these things, you're welcome to just send me a message, and I'm happy to respond as quickly as I can.